Our world is soaring toward 2012. Time is speeding up. Chaos is shifting into a new level, and we feel the pull to unlock the mysteries of the universe. Timeless spiritual wisdom offers the point of stability to navigate these times and to open our greatest potential. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the fun and knowledge of visionary best-selling authors Sri and Kira as they explore these mysteries and invite your higher love to come forward. And now, here are Sri and Kira.
Namaste. I am wisdom teacher Sri Ram Ka.
And I am Kira Ra. And beloved ones, as we are recording this show right now, it doesn't matter when you're listening to it, but as we're recording this show right now, we are 7 days into the Israeli-Palestinian conflict going on in 2012.
The latest version thereof.
The latest version thereof. We are heading into December 2012, a very paramount time. And we are watching world posturing to the point where one needs to ask the question, is there something else? Is there a hidden agenda? Is there a cosmic intervention coming or not? What is happening? What is in front of us? How do we understand it? And Sri, the big N word, Nostradamus. It's time to re-examine all of that as we dive into this powerful moment.
Well, we're truly at an amazing time on the planet, and as amazing as it is, and as unique as it is, there are parallels to other times. There are indeed patterns which seem to be playing out.
Well, you know, I just want to giggle too that not only are there patterns, but we are creating them. You know, humans are cyclical, and we just keep creating things over and over again, even when we know better.
Even when we know better. Now that leads to an interesting thing. Many of us joke on the path of awakening that we're on a spiral path. We seem to revisit things that we thought we were done with. We seem to revisit things that we thought were resolved.
Well, and the longer you spend time on the planet, the more that gets in front of you, doesn't it?
Well, it does. And, you know, in the best case scenario, yes, we may revisit things. However, our wisdom is now different.
Yes.
We have the opportunity to respond
well,
and
I got to
choose
jump
differently.
in. We have the opportunity to respond and choose differently. We don't always do that, and that's part of what we're witnessing on the planet right now.
Well, that's right. You know, just last month when we were at our last community gathering, we chatted a little bit about reactivity versus responsibility.
And go check that out at our website, shriandkira.com. Really powerful information.
And human beings, like all animals, have the ability to react. You know, the famous flight or fight syndrome.
Sure.
The ability for adrenaline to be automatically released, and then the corresponding ripple effect of what does that do in consciousness.
And you know, Sri, even with that, we have tried to manipulate that. And that's one of the things that I'm seeing on the planet right now is that if you are to take the wide angle lens, there is certainly the appearance of a manipulation of consciousness, and even that adrenaline fight or flight response that you're talking about. Humanity has gotten to the point where they're trying to recreate it all the time. It's like they're wanting to stay in a constant state of that adrenaline release.
Well, or that excitement, that agitated state. You know, there's so many things that we can dive into, and those of you that are new to the show, I invite you just to stay with us because we cover a lot of ground.
Oh, yeah.
And oftentimes when you listen again, you'll go, wait a minute. Oh, because consider for a moment the state of our movie theaters and the large number of movies, films that are all based on adrenaline, excitement, thriller, cops, chase scenes, all of this pounding stimulation.
Well, you know, Sri, pounding stimulation, isn't that also, and I'm giggling again when you talk about the movie theaters, because right now, to me, the grand movie theater is our planet Earth.
Well, then let's just take that out to the outer world.
Let's do it.
And now we take a look at the news cycle, and we take a look at what's going on in the different continents. It is the same stimulation that periodically there is something alarming on the news that all of the cameras focus on and all the talking heads talk about. And just the concept, for example, of an iron dome.
Right.
Wow, hundreds of missiles in the air.
And you know, Sri, I mean, I'm sitting here just thinking about that going, okay, the Iron Dome. And then where I go with that is the Iron Age and going back through. And one of the things, if you've been listening to Shri and I for a while, you are very familiar with our work. And if you're not familiar with our work, go to shriandkira.com, click on the Archangelic Teachings, and specifically right now, read message 1 of the Lost Books of the Essene series. Now, all the messages are really super important right now, but that one is resonating for me as we dive into December, because we are at the moment of the repetition of the cycle. And one of the quote, I'm going to use the word prophecies, although I think there's better words than that, that was in that was talking about repetition of the cycle, that the dark ages would not look so dark, and that we are right now, and you mentioned it earlier, Shri, at the opportunity of repeating or choosing a different cycle than we did during the 1930s.
Now that's also is a lot of ground to cover, because consider this. Every human being is carrying with it its history,
Yes.
meaning the species history, the racial history, the cultural history. It's
Right.
all in the DNA. If we live a life that is asleep or drowsy, meaning if we're more of a reactor rather than a conscious responder, then history will repeat itself.
Now, look at Israel and Palestine. I would say that's a great opportunity. I'm not offering a judgment on this. I'm just saying it's a great way to witness reaction. It's constant reacting.
And certainly in Israel's case, without passing judgment on their values, they are very clear and very firm that if you do this, we will respond in this way.
Right.
That they have made that very clear to everyone. Here's how we're going to treat aggressors.
Right.
And they're certainly consistent.
Well, and here's what's fascinating is that when you gaze at what's happening over there right now, these people, the Palestinians and the Israelis, are taking on so much on behalf of the planet. They're playing out in such a mini scale the tension, the pressure, we know things have to change, we know things can't continue the way they are, and they're forcing everyone to pay attention, because let's face it, there's an undercurrent on the planet. How many of you right now have this sense of, we are at a moment where everything's got to change?
Everything's got to change. Boy, we're certainly at a moment of heightened energy.
Exactly.
And this is something, and we're going to jump around here for a moment. Consider what's been going on the last dozen years.
Mm-hmm.
There has been more energy. There's been more evolution. There's been more technological breakthroughs.
Right.
Everything has moved at such an accelerated rate that people have adopted a new state of excitement and a new state of numbness.
Well, this is what we talked about earlier, and it's brought us up to this 2012 point, and we've been in this point now. You know, we've been navigating this year. We're coming into quote unquote the home stretch, but we're coming into it number. We're coming into it in a lot of levels, Shri, regressed in our
Yes.
evolution as humanity, and yet everything around us is conspiring. And this is where I want to go, is that, you know, Nostradamus talked a lot about this time, and we'll recap that in a moment. There is definitely a cosmic overlay. The fifth dimension is here. We are living in greater experiences. What are we willing to do about it? Or is it that Matrix moment? You know, put me back in, I don't want to remember anything.
Well, I think everybody has moments when we don't want to remember. You know, it's like put me to sleep, please.
Right.
Or wake me up when the sun's shining.
Right.
And certainly there's a part of us that gets tired of the bombardment.
Indeed.
Tired of the tension and the stimulus. And rightfully so, because we are designed of light. And light expands. Light naturally expresses in a harmonious fashion. Yet in this world of density, in these forms that we call our bodies, in this beautiful earth that we call our home, we are constantly in an environment that has friction.
Yes.
And that friction and that density is an opportunity to choose a perspective, to choose a level of consciousness which implies a perspective.
Yes.
So we can engage it at seemingly face value and do battle with density and confront it and be in the flight or fight arena, which we call density consciousness, and you can certainly look that up in any number of our books. Or we can begin to evolve through and lift our vibrational rate, our level of consciousness, begin to notice the interweaving of love and light that's expressing.
Correct. So I've got to just stop and say, okay, so let's look at this. One of the things, and I'm going to say it, guys, one of the things that I must admit still ruffles my feathers, let's put it that way, is that there has been an extraordinary stream, I mean an extraordinary stream of manipulation in the way information is being given out. You know, and I know that we're in the age of Kali Yuga, and there's lots of people that talk about when that age is actually going to end and things of that nature. However, this is what I want to look at. As we dive into the month of 2012, you know, and I'm sure a lot of you have received this, I have been bombarded by people either inviting Sri and I to go somewhere or sending me emails about why we should come do this big whatever festival, and all these people that are getting together. It has become a show. It has become for profit. It has become for egomaniac gratification. And the reality is, and beloved listeners, I want you to hear this, all of these options are out there, and that's awesome. However, we are being called to a time of stability. We are being called to a time that says, it's not about my ego. It is not about getting together to show how awake we think we are. That in and of itself is an egocentric expression. It is about the opportunity to claim within your clarity, your freedom. And the greater the manipulation, the greater the chance of repeating that cycle, because cycles come back in because of the lower experience of our ego. The ego says, I want more, or the ego says, I didn't get my just due.
Well, the ego craves stability, and
exactly.
Stability means repetition.
And we are at such a dangerous moment for that right now. You know, one of the things, let me talk a little bit about Nostradamus, and you guys that have been following us for a while know that Sri and I really offer to you this wisdom from the archangelic realm, this wisdom from our cosmic brethren, the blue starborn. And the wisdom is this: because we live in a world of free will, which is an undisputable fact no matter where you go, the only way you can manipulate a stream of free will is to insert information into the stream that thereby pollutes the stream or allows those within this stream of free will to literally destroy themselves, to manifest their own destiny. And the irony is that it's all part of free will. I mean, it's really quite fascinating.
Right. If I can pull a Madison Avenue on you as an independent, empowered being and get you to be self-destructive,
exactly,
you've pulled your own trigger.
Exactly. And that's what, and I want you guys to hear this with great love and respect. If you are trying to manipulate a stream of consciousness, then inject prophecy into it. The one thing that you all have learned about the information that we are very, very blessed and honored and humbled to bring forward is that, to the frustration of many people, the archangelic realm will always inspire you to find the deeper answer, to let go of the fear within, to discover the answer within. They very, very rarely come up with specifics. And when they do, they offer these specifics because we, the collective, have already put something into motion that can no longer be avoided. The only thing we can do is navigate it, which is why they offer that information with great love and respect. But when it came to Nostradamus, you've got to decide, you've got to pay attention. A lot of what Nostradamus has offered has come to pass based on how you interpret the quatrains and now the recently discovered book with the pictures, which I feel that a lot of those pictures have been misinterpreted, and that misinterpretation has been offered out to the public mainstream to continue to influence the outcome. And so Nostradamus, if you read or you pay attention to some of what he has predicted, for December 2012, his big prediction is, and it's fascinating to pay attention, that the conflict in the Middle East will get very, very close to all-out war and then be at the last minute averted. And that the biggest person playing the role in that aversion will eventually lead and come forward as the one who will stimulate or agitate what will become the final showdown on our planet.
So the seeming savior of the moment, the peace broker of the moment, will later become the stimulator of great death and destruction.
And we have a lot of people rising that can fill that role. And whether it's a person or a country or an energy or a group, it doesn't matter. But certainly we're seeing that starting to play out. Then you have the biblical prophecies of the apocalypse, the destruction of the temple, and all of these other energies coming forward. The Earth changes. You and I recently were here during a 7.5 magnitude earthquake in Guatemala, right in the heart of it. You and I literally got to ride the wave of that earthquake, as did many beautiful people that we know.
And it's quite a fun wave.
Yeah, on many levels. And we wrote about that. Go to our website, ShriandKira.com. We don't need to take up time with that right now. But the reality is, if you choose, and there's a lot of people that are fascinated with negative, if you choose to look at what's happening right now, you could very easily say, we are here. And then you have this wave coming in on the other side, and it's not a large wave, but it's a wave saying, we're getting ready to dance our way, to have sex through our way, to sing our way through December 21, 2012, which is very much an ostrich in the head approach. There's a beauty in seeing the positive, and there's also a limiting perception in that, because you're taking the same cycle and applying it to something that you think is new. So it brings me to the next question, which I want to explore with you guys today, which is, what's the bigger picture here? Because certainly everything else, all the dominoes have laid out. I mean, they're all in a row. They're in whatever nice little line you want, and all it's going to take is one person to push the first one, and they're all going to fall.
And they're going to fall in such a way that many people will say, I told you so, and other people will say, OMG,
Right.
and other people will have a funny Mona Lisa smile on their face and realize that there is a perfection at work that may at one level seem quite tragic.
Exactly. And this is why it's important to look at that. So let me introduce something here, guys. How many of you right now absolutely know deep within that humanity has deeper origins than just this planet? How many of you absolutely know we are not alone in the universe? How many of you absolutely know that there is a multidimensional experience around you? So if you were to know or play with or try to fantasize around this concept, then would it not make sense that what we are really leading to is a greater sense of our own awareness, our own self-awareness, and a freedom and or imprisonment that can come from the acceptance or non-acceptance of that greater picture?
We are at a time where you have more freedom to choose how you will be than any time before. So when we ask how many of you know these things, that are origins, etc., we're not asking your brain, because the brain likes to map it and prove it scientifically. The brain uses whatever paradigms you were born into. There was a time when leeches and dunking people in the water was a way of proving something.
Well, absolutely.
And now there's a time where we have other tests to prove things. We have to step outside the paradigms of proofs and understand that the word knowing is a sense of it is so.
Right.
A simple sense of it is so. The sun is shining behind those clouds in the sky. And so when we ask you how many of you know that you have cosmic origins, that you have galactic family out there, with that in mind, we then instill a tension in your consciousness, because the ego, the personality, the earthly identity gets a little threatened by this greater context.
Well, I think it gets a lot threatened. One of the things I would encourage you to do is, Shri and I, all of the books Shri and I have written are timeless, regardless of what might be in the title. But one of the more timeless books we've written that is so important right now, and if you own it, reread it, and if you don't own it, get it and read it now, is 2012 Atlantean Revelations. Because in there, we reveal an enormous amount of cosmic information that, quite frankly, a lot of beings on this planet don't want you to know. And when that book first came out, you and I took a lot of heat for that book, and it really was amazing to me how much it polarized people.
It's anytime you shake up a paradigm, there's people that get annoyed.
Exactly. But the reality is, if you're really seeking the truth, if you're really seeking the truth of yourself, if you're really seeking the truth of the greater answers, you must be willing to let go of paradigms. You have to open up a broad, wide-angle lens and accept a greater picture than the one that is just in front of you right now. And what I'm implying there is, seek out greater answers, get broader answers, yet All of that information, all of that truth needs to come from your own heart, your own wisdom. The information that you find will inspire the opening of the dormant DNA. And the reality is there is a lot of dormant DNA still within. Dormant DNA cannot necessarily be activated by another. It can be inspired, it can be coached, it can be gently awakened. But the reality is you will not anchor the opening of this dormancy unless you yourself do it. You are your savior, which is why the concept of a savior mentality has enslaved our planet.
And so there's a wonderful spiritual paradox at work. When it's time for you to open to your next level, oftentimes people seek experiences which will allow them to have that opening more easily. You know, they'll go and do the ayahuasca ceremony, or they'll go and seek a healer, or they'll take a weekend out in nature so that the aha moment can be more easily facilitated.
Yes.
And yet it's you that's doing it, not the so-called authority on the external.
Exactly. And you know, this is really important to understand because it brings us back to the street, who is the you?
Who is the you?
Who is the you? And you know, let's talk about that because, you know, beloved angels, there is a absolute powerful freedom, and I really want to use that word. There is a freedom that comes when you accept your galactic heritage. And I know initially that can sound crazy because people want it to sound crazy. Our planet wants you to feel crazy when you accept your galactic heritage, because in the acceptance of your galactic heritage, you break free of a limited paradigm and a limited worldview. And when you look at that, it opens up the door to so many more questions that it can be overwhelming, which is why many people open the door and then go, wow, way too much behind this door, I'm closing it. So when we look at our DNA, when we look at the expansion of that, the reality is we are not all from the same DNA background, yet we are one in our cosmic heritage.
DNA is a misunderstood term because it's, you know, we're dealing a bit with the as above, so below kind of understanding here. We have a physical DNA, and this earthly scientists have gone to great trouble to map that and to create some form of control through their mapping. We also have a spiritual DNA. We have stranding, if you want to call it that, that is, let's just say we have streams of wisdom that are available to us that are not yet detectable by the instruments of density.
There you go.
So what is it you're awakening? What is it that you're truly awakening? The one thing that I know from my journey is that with every aha moment, with every moment of greater wisdom, love, and expansion, my sense of the universe expands. There is an expansion underway. And this is why universally, as we grow, as we evolve, as we self-ascend, our context for who we are and what is our place in the universe necessarily shifts.
Yes.
And we continue to grow and we continue to shift. Now that's scary to the ego. It can be scary to your friends. And yet it is inspiring to the soul because our consciousness is becoming ever more aligned with the truth of who we are.
Well, and you know, Shri, this is an important piece of discernment, especially as we come into the end of 2012 and move into the Mayan sunrise of 2013. As we move forward, as we are growing, it is your time. It is your moment. What do you want to do with it? Can you break free of the prophecies in front of you? Can you break free of the mainstream media that wants you afraid? Can you let go of polarizing on the sides and trying to determine who's right and who's wrong? Can you move into a wide-angle ledge of your own cosmic heritage and literally break out of the binding, limited body that you have and allow it to be your service vehicle rather than your enslaver?
And so as we're coming to a close for this sharing, I want to bring up a topic that will launchpad us to the next show.
Because we're going deep with this over the next few weeks.
And this concept is one of our old friends.
Okay.
It's called fear.
Indeed. The big F, the ultimate F word.
The ultimate four-letter word. You know, fear is so insidious, and it's so basic in the construct of our individuated beingness that we all must confront it in some fashion or another. And most people dance around it. Most people would rather avoid it and have seemingly happy experiences while looking the other way than to confront it. Because, I mean, why would you want to confront pain? Why would you want to confront fear? And the answer to that question is your capacity to allow a recognition of fear energy in your life is directly related to your capacity to know the truth of who you are. As we begin to trust our truth, meaning our soul's energy, ever more, we can handle what is uncomfortable with greater ease.
You mean we can handle the truth?
We can handle the truth.
Right.
We can confront fear, and we can heal fear. Fear can be resolved. Fear is nothing to be frightened of. But the doubt that we can handle it is indeed the killer.
So the key is this. As we head into December 21, 2012 and beyond, because it doesn't matter when you're listening to this show, the question in front of you is, are you selling out to the mainstream, whether that's mainstream new age, whether that's mainstream, whatever definition you want to give that word, are you selling out or are you expanding through? Because everyone is making that choice, and 99.999% of the public figures out there have sold out because it's an extremely opportunistic time to cash in. Are you ready to cash in the truth of who you are? If so, cash in, dive in, and as Archangel Zadkiel would say, do it well. Or are you ready to expand through and find the ultimate prosperity of the divine connection of the truth of who you are, the truth of what our world has to offer, and the truth of how amazing it can be? Because you can't have both. You can't sell out and simultaneously expand through. And that's the energy of this moment.
And in this moment, in 2012, you do have a choice.
And so it is. As we look forward to sharing this conversation more with you, bring that hand to your heart, take in a deep breath, that soft smile, and know that all is truly well.
Namaste, beloved one. This is Kira Ra, and I am inviting you to take a journey of the soul in the land of the heart. Imagine your life free from chaos and filled with creative clarity. Imagine waking up each day in your private lakefront casita, greeted by brilliant sun, flowers, and birds. It is here that you will effortlessly resurrect your divine blueprint in pristine energy. Yes, I am inviting you to join us for a personal resurrection.
Thank you for joining us today for 2012 Higher Love. Remember that you can find out more about Shri and Kira by going to shriandkira.com. That's SRIANDKIRA.com.